Welcome to Deadlock Vents, the podcast about Deadlock and venting your frustration, whether it be bad matchmaking or just that character that needs a nerf. My name is Transparent and I am joined by Conor.
That was so formal. I wasn't expecting it to be that formal. I was expecting like a hello kind of thing, but yeah, that works.
Well, here at Deadlock Vents, we are trying to do the best in production quality, of course, but with the lowest takes. Yes, Conor and I are not particularly great at Deadlock, but we love it, don't we? We do love it.
I am terrible. I think I've just deranked today to whatever the green one is.
The green one.
Yeah.
That's how invested we are.
I was a month ago, I was red, and now I'm green, which doesn't feel like progress with colours, because you think it would go the other way, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm digging myself through Phantom. But yeah, it's been this new patch, right? It's this new patch.
I'm really struggling with it. I find it so difficult because I suck in playing the lane, and it seems to be all about the lane currently. And
it is, yeah.
No, what were we going to say?
It's all guns. It's all guns and lanes.
And I suck at shooting, and I suck at being patient, and I suck at being angry. Basically, I'm just bad at the game.
Yeah. And I think the biggest losers, okay, so the patch itself, very briefly for anyone who's not up to date with the patch, I suppose, is that it's there's minions now drop the XP right where they are, and you have to go pick it up. That's sort of the main feature. The rest of it is all balance changes, but that is the main gameplay feature that's changed. And it means that the biggest losers out of it seem to be Vindicta and Grey Talon, who so often stay at range and they just can't get in to pick it up.
Yeah, so I was having a little look at win rates on StatLocker, which are sort of the best we're going to get a hold of. The other really obvious loser to me was Pocket, but for different reasons. Pocket obviously went from being one of the best laners in the game to kind of very poor, or he's like middle of the pack now, but I think that's more to do with the spirit nerfs than the soul nerfs, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Holiday's also dropped in their lane presence, but again, I think that's because Holiday got nerfed and not because of the XP difference. But the other ones that are also long range and suffer, Sinclair, obviously, because he,
is just spirit.
Yeah,
and the other thing is that scaling change, right? Like the XP is a little bit faster now, so maybe people like Pocket who did do well, but obviously later on the curse or some shutting down could have really countered him. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to think why Pocket, but it's just the spirit.
I think
nerfs,
it's just
right?
the spirit nerfs. Yeah,
in the gutter.
I gave a go. I had a little go of. I played Grey Talon before this patch, and I tried to give Vindicta a go with this patch because I haven't really played her before, and she felt awful to play. Regardless of I had some other opinions regarding. I didn't think she felt very finished as a character, but other than that. Both of them felt to really struggle with what they were strong with before, which is just keeping someone at a distance and sort of peppering them. And like the weakness now with the souls is you as a very immobile, long range character have to get in close to do anything. And neither of them are particularly great late game heroes. Characters, are they heroes in Deadlock? What do you call them?
Yeah, I think it is heroes. I think for now, I mean, they've all sort of got this sort of villain arc, right? And that's the thing. They're all sort of pseudo bad.
We could just call them villains. The villains in the game.
Bad boys.
Other than, I think Abrams and Ivy are meant to be good, but I think that's it. Maybe Bebop and Dynamo.
I think everyone's got their own motive for invoking the patron's help. But
different motivations, I guess.
Okay, here's a topic that I want to get into.
Right, okay.
Counter items when the meta shifts, right?
Okay.
So we are the average player. We like to think of ourselves as the average player. I'm a little bit higher. You might be around the more average player here, Conor. But do we think that people are buying counter items enough with this new patch?
I've seen so many people take Suppressor now in a way that, occasionally someone took Suppressor before, but I just see Suppressor in most games with most people. I feel like I'm seeing Knockdown more often as well.
Yeah.
Just because I think both of them get a lot of value without really dragging you down so much. The other one I've seen pretty much in every game is Focus Lens. which I don't know if necessarily a counter item anymore because it just sort of does everything. But at least before it was.
It did get nerfed. It got its cooldown increased, which was sort of a good thing because it did feel quite oppressive. And it made that, especially when I was playing Calico lots, I needed to have debuff remover just so that I could make sure I get out of places very easily without getting that focus lens on me.
The additional functionality of it, though, where it's also gained, what's the name of the ability? Spirit? Was it Spirit Eye? What is it called?
The Spirit Sap?
Yes, that's the one. Spirit. I think it's got an eye in the picture, which is why I'm. Yeah. Spirit Sap is now added onto it, so it now has this extra burst
build path, right?
Yeah, and also, it does more damage effectively. It reduces spirit resist, which means that characters like Wraith or Lash are getting a lot more damage out because you can just pop that on someone and it's a guaranteed extra 12% damage. And it also reduces the damage that you're taking because obviously it reduces spirit power for anyone that you hit with it. I think, I'm a little bit worried that that's too strong. I can imagine it getting nerfed in like a week.
It's one of those things, like it's when it becomes like an all, like when Heal Beam was nerfed, right, with the cooldown, and equally like they have done the cooldown changes as well, and that's going to in fact impact the items, even though that is only transcendent cooldown. It's still sort of like, what do they want with cooldowns in Deadlock? I think that's a really interesting thing when the game comes around to these sort of balance changes, especially around itemization and those cooldown usages.
But they don't have mana. So this is like the first MOBA that doesn't have an extra modifier really to impact the cost of everything. You know, like we both come from HOTS, so mana is a big part of HOTS because also you've got a fountain that you can tap at, so they want you constantly fighting. But then you play someone like Tyrael and you remember that he came out in 2014 when mana was the way that they dictated the game, and he just has no mana all of the time.
And it's the same like when you step into League or Dota, right? You know, mana is much more restrictive there. You are going to be using there's sort of big cooldowns always with a big impact. And I think Deadlock's obviously similar to Dota due to Ice Frog being heavily involved in both. But obviously without mana, how do you balance cooldowns?
I've got no idea. I think it's one of the reasons they're struggling so much. And like, I think the counter items thing also links in with the stat changes a lot more. Because I think you're naturally more likely to take a counter item with the fact that you get the stat bonuses so much earlier now. You get them twice as early as you did before because it used to be 9,600 and it's now 4,800. And I'm seeing people just pick up like Rusted Barrel. I'm seeing people pick up, I think, more Rebuttal a little bit more often, but that may have just been quite a common pick anyway. I mean,
it is that anti-gun though, right? Like the Rusted Barrel is to get that anti-gun, the like a capacitor, or what is it? The suppressor. I felt so good on Mirage, just popping people with suppressor. It felt like I could easily shut down Haze and the vampire dude. Gosh,
Drifter.
Yeah, Haze and Drifter. I could easily shut them down, and I could just make sure that I wasn't in danger too often. Like I was still in a little bit of danger, just I wasn't instantly dying.
It's caused a weird thing because I'm now seeing characters take bullet resist shredder that wouldn't have taken it before. I was seeing like I don't know, like a Lash or a 7 take it, and maybe 7 might have taken it before, but it feels weird it being on a Lash, but then it's also performing quite well on him as well. So I'm not really, I'm not sure how I feel about the stat jump. It feels so much impact early. I do like that you're now thinking more about counter items and less about just going, how do I get my numbers as big as possible?
And I think that was the thing with like the cooldown meta, essentially, is what I'm going to call it now. You know, people were getting a lot of that building cooldown. That's why they nerfed, or they made transcendent cooldown even as an item, was to just stop sort of cooldown abuse. And now it is more about thinking through, what do I want? When do I want it? But it means that those gun characters pop up. And of course, the other thing to think about with gun characters is they do easier damage to structures. And the structures now, the keeps, they feel like they stick around forever.
Because I'm bad, I'm always behind. right? Especially with this patch. I had a look at my match history. I've drawn 2 lanes and lost every other lane since this patch started.
We like to say that we get a lot of practice from playing from behind. I think that's what
I think I lose the lane 50% of the time. Maybe it's less than that, but it's not good. It's like 40% maybe.
Lanes are hard.
So, but the thing is my overall win rate is over 50%, right? With Ivy, who is my particular best, it's like 56, I think.
Yeah.
So I would lose the lane with Ivy, and then I would know how to play it before. And one of the just to link it back with the souls change as well. There was a tactic that I used to do with Ivy, which is even if I lost the lane, I would sit on a lane and I could clear the minions from range, make sure that I'd shot all the souls and got those extra souls I would need, and I'd rush and do a camp. And she's got great camp clear, so I'd get to do a camp, maybe 2. I'd run back to the lane, get the next wave, and I could do that, and I would be able to hold and keep a walker alive for ages. If the team ever needed me, I'd go and fly, and I'd go and assist, and I just feel like I can't do that anymore. With the soul changes, I have to be present. If I'm behind, I can't push up in the lane to go and get the souls to then have that priority, which means that I'm often giving up my own camps to the enemy because the risk is too high, because they're ahead. It means that I'm much more incentivized to take a fight in a way that I wasn't before. And I find that it means that if you lose these fights, which you often do because you're behind, it ends up just snowballing because you have to soak these minions close, because of this limited distance. You can't go and break away and get this extra bit of XP that you could in such an easy way before. And so I find that limits a lot of these other little characters. I find it gets all linking together. How do you feel about the patch? Because we've not actually covered that at all. We're giving like opinions on things. Are you enjoying the patch? Are you having a good time with it?
Someone would say we're venting about it. Hashtag deadlock vents. I don't know. So how do I feel about it? I think generally, I do feel kind of good about it. In my soul, I feel good. I think, the Calico player in me really enjoys playing up with the minions. I think there's a very much the tempo of control of, controlling the lane, making sure you've got the middle bridge bit, the barrier. I don't know what people call that. I call it the bridge, but
I call it the bridge too, yeah.
Something else. The lane bridge. So like making sure you're on that lane bridge and pushing against the structures always... It's like so important because as soon as you're on your side of the map, you feel behind. It's so much harder to get the heal, to get the XP easily. And I kind of like that in a way because it does feel rewarding, but it does mean that defending against any sort of lane that is slightly ahead of you feels hard. And it means that I sacrifice going to the shop sometimes. There was a time on Mirage where I just didn't go to the shop for so long because I was like, I need to make sure that I don't lose the space here. I don't lose the positional advantage, which I think Deadlock succeeds so well in making sure that positioning is important, even in a 3D space, which I think is one of the coolest things about Deadlock, generally.
I do. But yeah, I do like that aspect of it. Like I'm now getting punished a lot more for my bad positioning, which is obviously making me learn how to position better. But when I go and try and get those orbs, I should be using things to block the shots, and so I don't get shot and take damage for free. But I do suck at that, and I think this is one of the reasons that I'm struggling so much with this patch is because my positioning is terrible. So I go up to get the XP. Oh, I've lost all my health. Okay, now I have to sit at the Guardian. Oh, okay, they're now gonna push in, and they've got the advantage doing that.
I think the toughest thing for me is that walkers, like the outside walkers, feel a little bit too tough. I feel like maybe they can make it so that they go to the minimum armor at like 18 minutes in. I think I want to bring that forward a little bit just because so often, even trying to backdoor one when you're behind, it just takes so long. Often times I'm pushing out the waves and just hoping that the enemy doesn't defend it against the troopers rather than me staying there because my little portrait on the map is so much more of a please come defend this walker than a line of minions slowly whittling down the walker's HP. I don't know. That's my feelings with it, but that's because I've played so much Calico in the past and stuff like that just hasn't done walker damage even in the past or recently.
I mean, how do you feel about the range changes on the walkers? Because
I quite like it.
You like it?
I like it a lot.
I no longer feel like they're a safe space.
I enjoy the markers on the floor.
Oh, I do like that.
And I do quite like it. I saw a thread on Reddit, someone else venting, saying that they hated the markers and it broke their immersion. For me, it's like, sweet spot. I know exactly where to stand. I've been set on fire more times than I care to admit now by the walkers, and it takes me ages to get back on the zip line, but I love it that I can go a little bit closer, especially in those sort of close quarter heroes like the Calicos, like the Abrams. You can real get in there to put damage on the walker. But I get, then they're not a safe space anymore.
I do love the lines. There is so often, this is quite embarrassing to admit, it's so often I will be standing exactly out of the lines, exactly where I used to stand, and I will be shooting a whole clip into them and then go, oh, I'm not in the bloody line, and I have to move forward. But I
think it does like sort of increase proactive defense, I think
so
heroes.
Too,
because, yeah.
I missed the stomp. I used to, because I was playing Holiday quite a lot. I used to get lassos, pull under the stomp. That felt really good. That little bit less range and my positioning not quite being as good as it probably could be means that I haven't quite got as many of those, but I haven't been playing her quite as much. So that might also be a contributing factor.
The range certainly is like much closer in, and it also, of course, means that the damaging thing. But the nice thing about the lines being there is that you can now tell, because I think they were slightly different depending on what side you're on. If you're on Amber or Sapphire, it's like, oh, this is, I've got to get a little bit further under the bridge here, even though it's supposed to be symmetrical. It sometimes feels not quite, especially with the new art coming in every so often. So yeah, I think they probably could increase the range of the stomp. I think you're right. I think that needs a little bit of a change.
It's just because it feels very unintuitive, I think. Because you get under this giant red thing and then it doesn't even reach the outer line. I don't know.
I think also now, because the stomp area is telegraphed or whatever, you can go in, you can bait it, you can get out of the stomp range, right? Which, feels nice, but it then removes that security. Whereas if it was slightly bigger, it's going to mean that safety area of going into bait it isn't quite as big. And I can see those being some changes that they might make.
So what I'm finding, because obviously you're about 4 or 5 ranks, not in terms of levels, but like whole ranks above me. I'm really struggling. I'm not struggling to defend as much. I seem to still be putting in solid defense. I can hold them until like 25 minutes usually.
Are we talking generally or in lane or in walkers?
In walkers.
Yeah, but I think, they still give loads of armor, right?
I'm finding it impossible to attack them. There's something, the healing thing, which we haven't even covered yet, which I think is actually one of my favorite things of the patch. I think it's probably my favorite thing of the patch. But the fact that you get healing as a defender means that you're always topped up a little bit more than your opponents, because obviously they have to clear the minions to get to you, which means that you've got an extra 200, 300 health. If there's a second one, you might have an extra 200, 300 health. I think obviously as well, you're able to funnel them in. You're able to make like some weaknesses of that. Obviously, I think the Walker does more damage now, does it?
Yeah, it's got the big splash fire damage is a lot more.
All these things just come up to, I push. There's been occasions where I've been 6 people and I'm pushing against 3, and we've struggled to get a walker, and maybe we will, or maybe we'll just miss it. But struggling in those situations, which I find really odd, because I remember every patch previously, you would just kill that walker. And maybe that's a good thing, but I don't enjoy it. Is maybe the way that I should talk about it, because whether it's good or not, I just find it quite a frustrating change.
And I think that is part of like in the past, the whole there used to be. So for those who don't know, it's one of the most obscure things about Deadlock is that the walkers have varying armor depending on how many people are around there. And I'm not sure in the patch notes if they took it out or not, because it wasn't very clear in the patch notes either. They sort of made it sound like they've just got a flat amount of armor, but they give more armor. But in the past, if you had more than 4 or 3 people even attacking Walker, the Walker's armor would increase, be more bullet resistant, which was so hard to sort of know and understand from a game without reading a wiki. And I think, that's part of it again. You and I don't play many of the Hazes, the Wraiths, the Infernuses, or sometimes the Drifter a little bit. But, without those characters, attacking a Walker is so hard now. And I think that is something they've got to sort of just tweak.
I used to get away with playing Ivy and getting walkers. Do you remember that I would always run in and I would get so many walkers? Like every game, I would at least get one walker with Ivy, and I just find it's too hard to do that now.
Yeah, even at their like max armor reduction, right?
Yeah, because there's always someone there. It feels like there's no punishment to being on a lane anymore. Because if everyone's able to group, what happens is you have one person on either side lane, and you just have 4 people brawling in the middle. And what ends up happening is whichever team is just better at team fighting, which is usually the team that's ahead, just ends up snowballing.
And that brings me to one of the great points that we sort of experienced the other day. Mobility seems king now, right? I mean, mobility's always been very important in Deadlock, but having a team that can quickly rotate to any position on the map just seems to be the way to win fights.
We played with you on Mirage, and it was unbelievable how much of an impact you just teleporting over the place had on the team fight. I think you ended the game like 10k souls above the next person because you were just between lanes the whole time. I don't think we actually won that game, but the impact was amazing because it meant that we actually managed to push structures because we had a man advantage to such a degree. In a way that I don't think we could have done otherwise. And I do wonder if the other global IV and the other pseudo global Calico could be used in such a way for maybe such an advantage.
I don't. I mean, the top.
Who else is like good mobility wise, like Mo and Krill? But you probably want him with the team.
I mean, you've got the holidays.
Obviously,
even Hayes as well, going around with her smoke bomb and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who gain this movement speed. They gain sort of this ambush. And you were playing on Vindicta. Vindicta's very sluggish. She can't move around. McGinnis as well. People who can, they can dash, they can wall jump, they can do mobility techs, but they're not got that baseline speed, the baseline way to rotate around the map and get to somewhere is, the big part of making an impact right now in this, well, what was a big death ball meta, but we're sort of still in there just because, if a fight breaks out anywhere, suddenly 4 members of the enemy team pop up. You need to get out ASAP.
I do weirdly think, and you briefly mentioned McGinnis, I do weirdly think McGinnis is, and this might just be my rank talking, I actually think she's one of the people where this whole situation with the laning goes the other way around. Because McGinnis is fantastic at both pushing and defending. So you can stick her on one of those side lanes, and while she'll do nothing else but defend it, you're not getting that walker from her because she can out-trade 1v2. She's got amazing healing. She's got 200 bullets in her gun if she wants it. And like a decent McGinnis, which I've seen a few, can just do that. They can just win a 1v2, especially with how she is right now. With that gun scaling, the fact that she can easily tap into both green and purple now for those bonuses, and it doesn't punish her, right? Because she's so good at having a flexible build. It means that she's actually pretty solid. Vindicta I 100% agree with, though, because she felt terrible to play, and it might just be that I'm bad, but I did not have a good time.
I think as well, like, obviously our ranks where we play together, it is the case of like if people aren't moving around the map, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tough. And if people just sit around generally, it's going to. So come on, guys, get moving around the map. Go for ganks. Stop sitting in lane. Maybe that's the key. Maybe that's the key that we should be promoting in our games.
It doesn't seem to work for me because I've tried Calico for the first time and I would go and gank and then die. So evidently I'm just feeding. But
I think the top Calico builds at the moment, I think they aren't prioritizing the cat. They're trying to work out how do we use our burst in this meta that doesn't encourage burst anymore. They've nerfed a lot of the Calico items. The cooldown reduction's gone. Obviously, a lot of spirit has gone. Gun is up. And I think, maybe it's putting a few extra points into that cat early on just to make sure your rotations are clean and quick. I don't think who else has sort of turned up in my games and been a hero that has really annoyed me.
I mean, Infernus, Geist.
Infernus is one of the weird ones because people still are frustrated at Infernus, but you told me Infernus isn't doing well.
So Infernus, at least at my rank, is terrible. Let's have a look at what's the good ranks. When do people start caring?
I mean, some people will say Eternus.
Eternus is the only true rank, yeah?
Yeah, that's what lots of people say.
So I'm going to do Phantom to Eternus because I'm not one of these people.
Sounds good.
Infernus is sitting at 47% win rate. So he's actually right next to Vindictor. They had the same win rate. Grey Talon as well. So I wonder if... I do wonder if there's certain characters that will just dominate him, and if you don't have one of those, you'll struggle, but otherwise, there's quite a few things that shut him down.
I think a lot of people have solved him now, they feel like. I think, they're like, oh, just debuff remover. Debuff remover is obviously still very strong with a lot of sort of the Infernus, but also with Focus Lens being around and stuff. And just generally CC is always a bit of an issue. So I think that might be part of it there.
Who do you find are the biggest winners of this patch?
Okay, biggest winners. I mean, obviously Drifter, probably the biggest winner of them all. He did have immediate success off the patch and then got nerfed basically twice. But I think he's still a big winner because he was considered so low down in the rankings before the patch that now after the patch he's considered as an actual viable pick. I think that wins him big. The other one I want to say is Dynamo.
Oh my god, Dynamo feels so annoying to play into. Sorry, go on.
Stomp is huge. I can't dodge it in any way.
I'm in Timbuktu when I hit that fucking stomp. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's like someone standing across a room and just firing a bow at you, and all you can do is just sort of wave. It's like, that's a terrible metaphor. I need to find a better metaphor than that. That's terrible.
It's you're doing so well there. I even noted down what time you were venting. The stomp comes in, you dodge left, you get hit. You dodge right, you get hit. You dodge backwards, you get hit. You ain't avoiding it. Apparently you can double jump it, but I've never managed to do it, Connor. I've never managed to double jump over this massive wave that comes into my face. It's like I'm in Timbuktu and the wave has come all the way over from Africa.
As well, the other thing that I'm getting a lot of, I'm seeing a lot of, is they're taking gun builds again.
Dynamo.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Gun's great now. Gun's great.
Gun's fantastic. He doesn't suck in lane anymore, which I think is the biggest difference.
No.
Because he went from being, I think, the worst laner in the game.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone worse, but he was really bad, right? And he suddenly feels really, really solid. Like, I enjoy having him as a teammate. I'm actually usually more scared against laning against him than most other characters at the moment.
I want to say that is because of his stomp just being OP at the moment.
So
I feel
good.
like that. And, because it zones out so much, getting that positional advantage as well. His gun does fine, obviously, because of the gun stuff early game. Like, obviously, the guns stuff for him is much later on when you get that speed from the teleport. But yeah, otherwise, I think, it's just the stomp. Hits hard. You get the damage, Mystic Burst. You're half health, and then you have to cower behind, and you can't pick up any healing stuff because if you go forward to pick up the healing, you just get stomped and you die.
And I think as well, one of the things that he struggled against before was a lot of these like Spirit Burst characters could really punish his fat character model, right? You would have them just absolutely blow him up, and he would just stand there kind of a bit immobile. And because a lot of them got nerfed, it doesn't feel like that happens so much anymore. You don't really see Paradox anymore because she got, taken out back and shot. Pocket's obviously worse now, and he was one of the characters who used to do the same thing. I don't really see Viper much anymore, who used to be also one of the ones who punished him. Grey Talon, Vindictor.
Viper's not been popular for a long time. I think that's sort of a sad thing about Viper. She sort of slips through the cracks of a lot of things. And equally, she suffers from deadlock flooritis, is what I like to call it. That's not a great name. But, there's a lot of characters who get... So I don't want to talk about... Deadlock balance in general is, are you stuck to the floor or can you get off the floor? And obviously Viper is one of the ones who is stuck to the floor.
No. It's a dynamic I'd never thought about because I have done game design. I have, worked within games, and More what I struggle with this game is I find characters have abilities that shouldn't be abilities and they should be just part of what they are. And it's very inconsistent. McGinnis has a gun characteristic unique to her gun that has nothing to do with any of her abilities, and she has 4 solid abilities other than heavy barrage. She can get in the bin. Everything else is a relatively solid, reliable ability. I think
Bebop as well. A similar,
right? Similar thing. Seven has the crit thing for his helmet as well. So there's little things that characters have that are unique to them outside of, their abilities. But then some characters get it attached to them in a way that I don't like.
Yeah.
Viper's Slither could 100% just be part of her thing. Right? It doesn't need to have these extra little upgrades or anything like that. And it comes to this game design thing that I don't know if I necessarily agree with, which is in Dota, in HOTS, in League of Legends, certain characters will have additional abilities because they realized at some point during the design, we want them to do this thing, but we can't quite fit this into three or 4 things, so we need a 5th. Yeah. Or in certain cases, sometimes even 6, if we think about Rhaegar from HOTS. I think Puck from Dota might have 6. It's been a little while since I've played Dota. Ooh. But she has the teleport, and then she also has the beam thing. This is probably showing my age of when I last played Dota, because I've got a feeling it's not like that anymore. And so this obviously also goes back to Warcraft 3, which is where a lot of these things came from, and you didn't really want to have anything more than 4 abilities in Dota because, baseline Warcraft 3, you had 4. And so when you're playing this, I find there are so many characters who could just have it be a thing, like an extra thing they do. Infernus's Afterburn could totally just be a passive that he does.
Yeah.
Hayes' Fixation could totally be a passive that she just does.
So I'm going to disagree with you there. I'm going to disagree. I think you're right about Viper's Slide, but Infernus and Haze, they're both sort of things that you want to also be able to upgrade, right? In a sense. And, Infernus can upgrade the amount of damage it does, how long it lasts. Haze as well can get more fixation stacks. These are sort of the things that they have to invest points in. And they make the characters a bit more streamlined. I don't know what else you'd want from Infernus. Maybe... to be fair,
Infernus was a bad choice because Infernus is actually perfect. But in terms of my point was thinking towards I imagine that the characters who have those passives will at some point, I imagine from a game design perspective, always fall by the wayside in terms of meta. And you see this in a lot of games, and I think it's going to be true for Deadlock. Obviously, we're still very early on, and people are trying to figure it out. But if you are to measure a character through the entire course of when the game is released, how often are they meta? And I have a feeling that Viper, for example, will not be meta very often because I think her passive is terrible.
I think you're right.
I have a feeling... Haze will be less like that, but still sometimes like that. And I think the part of the reason that she's not sometimes is because Sleep Dagger's actually pretty solid. It's a decent engage tool. It's a decent isolation tool. I think that is the only thing that kind of saves her. Whereas Viper's CC is attached to her ult. It's on a very long cooldown. You get punished if you mess it up. Her other stuff's kind of cool. I actually think her Screwjab Dagger and her Lethal Venom are actually really cool abilities. I think they're fantastic. I just think Slither is terrible. I'm trying to think if there were other characters that I had on this list. I was thinking about Holiday on this list as well, because Crackshot, I think is good enough to be counted as a passive, an ability, because it doesn't have drop-off range.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And I think that's got a niche on its own that actually means it's probably fine. I obviously could mention a million things about Mirage, because I think Mirage's kit is interesting.
It's lackluster to say the least, right?
To put it bluntly, yeah. I think it's awful. Whoever made that kit basically had 4 character designs and decided to shove them onto one character. The Tornado is fantastic. The Global I love. I don't really like the other two abilities. I don't mind the Jin's mark. It's Jin's mark, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about the Scarabs. I honestly think that's as bad as the passives.
You're not wrong that he sort of had a lot of changes, right? Because his initial voice line for his ult was "My chains are not ready." If you ever pinged it, like I think he initially chained people together, and like there was sort of a CC element to it, and they moved away from that. And so obviously he had a little bit of a jumbling up of like, what's his design? The Scarabs are not an impactful ability. One day I'm going to talk about wow moments in Deadlock, and Mirage does not have many wow moments.
They're all tornado based, pretty much. They're all teleport in or just tornadoes, and that's all he gets. Is he'll occasionally get like a game winning tornado.
The problem with his tornado is that you often need it to escape. So even if you teleport in,
you don't even get to kill anyone most of the time.
I don't want to use my tornado because I will tornado and die. Like you want to tornado away from the enemy, or like away, when you're retreating while catching somebody. But just to move back to Viper, so she obviously has this slither.
I remember the rest.
When you upgrade it, feels rubbish.
I remembered the rest of my characters because Holiday and Infernus were not it. Right. So I had, when I was looking at this earlier today, I had Abrams, I had Calico, I had I kind of had Haze, but I've got a feeling you won't give it to me. I have Grey Talon, I have Vindictor, and I have Viper. And I kind of have Mirage's Scarabs because it doesn't do anything. I fundamentally think all of those characters kind of just have an ability that should just be baseline in what that character does. Infernal Resilience on Abrams, I just think he should always have it. Change the character to work with that, and then give him an ability. And I think it's one of the reasons that he was struggling until this patch is because, like, I think he has to be slightly overtuned to deal with the fact that he doesn't have an ability. I think that really sucks. Ava on Calico is honestly, I think, one of the worst abilities in the game. It's got this problem where if the cooldown's really short, it's broken. But if the cooldown's long, there's no point having it. There's no point it being a thing.
The other thing it does, right, is the higher up in skill level you go, the less it does, because people are much better at mobility at like higher level, and you'll get people bouncing off walls using the vents to get around. Shout out Deadlock vents, and people will do that. And so Calico's cat is like the lazy man's map mobility. And you're right, it then just doesn't do anything in a fight.
Great. I guess Drifter as well with Blood Scent, now that I'm thinking about it. But I'll ignore Drifter.
There's a lot of passives.
I think Drifter's is like unique to the hero, so I'm kind of less bothered by it. But I think Grey Talon's jumping in the air and Vindictor's jumping in the air should 100% be what in HOTS would be considered Zs or Ds.
Well, just I guess if you've seen Marvel Rivals or like Pharah in Overwatch, like we're looking at the shooters now, where we all equally get inspiration from. It's just the people with jetpacks, right? They just fly.
Yeah, they should just fly. Because to be honest with you, I don't think any of these upgrades. I'm looking at Grey Talon's upgrades now. Minus 14 seconds cooldown. While airborne, you get 5 damage, and weapon damage applies a 40% movement slow. And then you also get lifesteal on the final upgrade. Like, these things are like, are they interesting? I don't even think they're interesting, right? They're just
it's tough to see them like have a build around them, right?
Yeah,
I think that's the thing.
They're very sort of fill the gap abilities. At least it feels like. You look at Vindictor's flight. I'm actually, in fact, looking at Vindictor, and her suggested build order has the 3 flight upgrades as the last 3 upgrades that you upgrade for her. It just shouldn't be. This should hers. I think even more than Grey Talon, because obviously they're 2 separate abilities. Grey Talon can dash during his rain of arrows, whereas Vindictor can't. And I just think flight should be made some sort of passive ability, give her something else. It also means that she might not be so terrible late game, because she's either on the ground and getting shot at, or she's in the air and then she's pretty stationary and she's getting shot at.
Which, when there's gun meta and guns are doing damage, gun is the way to get those people who are in the air. So you can't always hit abilities on people far away, but you can always shoot them. And so it's always going to be a little bit of a terrible time for people like that. I mean, I don't 100% agree with you. I think there are, definitely tuning points on there, but yeah.
I think I more just want to get on the record, I guess, that I think long term, those characters are going to struggle more often than other characters because they have 1/4 less power. I think a good example of a character who has a passive ability effectively, but then it's also an active and does stuff is like Ivy's Watcher Covenant, right? Which is that's just a passive ability effectively. You can pretty much have it permanently off cooldown or like its duration long enough. If you want to build around it, it is interesting enough that you can build around it. You can build around it as a support thing, or you can build around it as a like a gun hyper carry kind of thing. I think that's a way you should do passives, right? So I would say that a lot of these characters, I think long term need to have these passives change into something. I think Calico's Ava should just be removed and she gets something else.
Shiv's Bloodletting was a big one, a target of patches over the summer, of course. It got reduced in cooldown to be a very short cooldown compared to being a longer cooldown. And it very much sort of is just a passive. And I think, especially when learning Shiv, you forget about it a lot. And with a lower cooldown, you kind of sort of start to go, oh, I can press it lots to negate a bit of damage here and there. But yeah, it's definitely a tough one when it comes to these passive abilities, whether, the shorter the cooldown becomes a bit more active. Maybe that's what needs to happen with Calico. Maybe, the cat needs to be a short burst cooldown that is like a little mini sprint with the cat, but then you come out of it 5-10 seconds later.
Shall we talk about both our favorite change of the patch? I think it's this. We both believe it's the best change of the patch.
Yeah, you mention it, and I'll remember.
So the healing change done to the minions.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so we spoke about this briefly, which in game, and we both mentioned that we absolutely loved this change. Was it your favorite change, or am I speaking for you in a way that's not true?
I don't know. I do think, it adds an extra element of choice, right? It does mean that defending feels horrible, but, there's a certain choice of going after the healing minion. Obviously, you have to put it last now instead of first. And it's all front loaded. It's a real big heal as well, which feels good when you get it. So yeah, I think it's good. And obviously, you and I come from Heroes of the Storm, where there's a little healing globe that drops. So nice to see inspiration taken from Heroes of the Storm a lot, because I think this does do well. Whether it'll get tweaked a bit more, I think the range on it is still quite small, so you don't always hit both people unless they're coordinated, which I can see doing well in higher levels, but at lower levels, if you miss it out, like whoopsie. But yeah, I mean, what's your golden feeling about it?
I think it does a number of things. I think it rewards anti-heal more because if you take an anti-heal item now early in lane, you can deliberately make sure that you're putting pressure on someone at the same time as you killing the healing minion and punishing them. And I think that's really cool. I think, weirdly, I think it fixed the healing rate problem. Which... Yes... basically, every character before would take healing right rather than any other early game healing item because it was just better, right? But you don't often want passive healing. You would rather want healing when you need healing. And so healing rate just did that, right? You could just pop it, hide somewhere for a little bit, and then you'd get it. And also the advantage of back with previous laning is your teammate could just clear the minions from safety, and then you haven't really got to sit there and soak, right? So it's managed to kill, and I wouldn't say kill healing rate, but sort of fix it a little bit more. That the characters who I now see taking it are the support characters who would want to be upgrading it into something a lot of the time.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right that this whole XP change actually is a big nerf to healing, right? In the sense that, having to be active in lane, having to make sure you're sort of present and at least, interacting with the enemy heroes means that healing rate just isn't as effective anymore.
I mean, are you also just taking extra regen pretty much every game now? I think also with the regen changes,
sort of trying out lots.
But I also with the regen changes that seem to have happened, I just find most games I'm taking monster rounds, which also gives you the one passive and you take less damage, which is nice. And then I'm usually taking extra regen. And those are mostly my first two picks. And obviously, I'm bad at the game. So I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to be doing. But I'm finding that it is, at least for me, it seems to be working. And my lane win rate is, my laning is getting better even if I don't necessarily win. Whereas before I would just get bludgeoned to death. So one of the things I want to talk about with the XP changes is we both come from Heroes of the Storm. And so I feel, I don't know if they've taken this change directly from Heroes of the Storm. It feels like it. I think this worked better in Heroes of the Storm than it works in Deadlock. Now, I personally felt that this was one of the worst mistakes they ever made in HOTS.
So just to clarify, this is the XP now being dropped on the ground and needing to be picked up.
Yes, this is that change, yeah. I personally felt that this was one of the worst changes they ever made to Heroes of the Storm. I really hated it. Mm-hmm. The other problem that I had... So why it worked better in HOTS, though, than it works in Deadlock is the structures are different. If you've not played Heroes of the Storm, the way that it works is you have 3 forts, 3 keeps, a core, but then each fort will have additional structures, so they have towers and gates, and a healing well, and the healing well you can use to heal yourself. This means that if you leave a lane unattended, there's actually extra defenses, and you don't just immediately lose all your structures, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
The problem that I find with the XP changes is in HOTS you can do things like freeze the lane. Because the structures die so quickly in Deadlock, you can't do that as easily. You can't use your own health as a punishment, use the healing well to heal, and then, keep the structures alive. In Deadlock, if you choose to take damage instead of the structures, the next wave comes along, you lose the structure. And so you take all these healing items in order to take more damage, in order to keep the thing alive, etc., etc. There's something about the physical 3D nature that I think restricts, or it might just be necessarily the ranges themselves. When we read the patch notes, I remember us thinking, oh, this would be great because we've played this before in HOTS, we'll have the advantage over everyone. And then the range, at the beginning, I didn't think it was that close, but it actually is really small. It's surprisingly small.
So I think, obviously the range to pick it up is 18 meters. But I think the thing that makes it very different to HOTS is that the orbs will always drop in Heroes of the Storm, whereas I think in Deadlock you still have to be in the vicinity for them to drop.
I think that's true. All. We weren't sure about this, so we might end up getting corrected by someone and saying, no, that's not how that works. But at least when we were having a little look at it, it seemed like sometimes when I was playing McGuinness and I was miles back, and when Transparent died, I wouldn't get the souls for some reason.
Yeah. And it meant that, like, at one point, I think I was like 1,000 ahead of you in lane. And we were just because you were far back on McGuinness and I was far forward on Calico.
And we just didn't understand what was going on. We just thought it would link to me, but no, it doesn't. It feels like such. It just feels like such a weird change in a way that I just don't think fits this game. You already had the element of confirming and denying, and you've added another dimension to an already incredibly complex game. Yeah. Like, I think it's one of the most complex games I've ever played.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you've added this. Anyway, sorry.
So one of my big things here as well is that the aggression, the advantage of aggression is supposed to be that you can melee the minions and they can't be denied, right? That's supposed to be the big advantage of being in amongst the troopers. You're able to confirm them without the ability for someone to deny. And I think now you've got that, and also you're able to guarantee that you get the rest of your XP. Whereas, if you're a ranged hero, all you can do is deny and not always pick up the floor XP. So it's really giving an advantage to those people who want to be in the front line, want to be meleeing the minions, want to be creating an aura of danger around them. And so I think it's, the scales have tipped onto the balance of that rather than those long range shooters like Vindicta, like Grey Talon that we talked about previously.
I want to move on to something else as well. How do you feel about the item slot changes?
Uh, item slot changes are very strange because I feel like I'm more choked than ever.
I think
and
I
that's
agree.
partially-
Yeah. I think I
It's
do.
partially
We
because-
didn't believe that at first. I remember we were talking about it. And we were like, "Oh, look at us! We got our extra item slot. It feels great."
Yeah.
And then after a few games, we were like, "Oh shit! I have no item slots."
So I think partially it's because of the XP change, right? We're getting a bit more XP over the course of the game a little bit earlier. And I think equally, of course, they're now locked behind walkers. And it's not like the second slot wasn't always locked behind one walker. But my God, we talked about how these walkers are so tough to take down now that if you're a little bit behind and don't have any sort of map control, and especially at our ranks, the macro of the team is not particularly great for if you take the urn, someone's not going to push on the other side of the map if you take the urn. They're all going to go, oh, we've got to rush to this urn. You can't do that sort of macro heavy game that you need to get the next slot. Because I think it does mean that the power in the second slot feels really good, but equally it just, it feels like you sit on 9 slots for so long.
I'm starting to wonder as well if the team, and I don't think anyone tracks this win rate, so I've got no idea. Like, I don't think we never check, but I would love to see if whoever kills the first walker wins the game. Like, I would love to have that information and see if that's true, because my experience says that a lot of the time it's worth dying to get a walker. And I think it's even worth dying a few times to get a walker in a way that I don't think it was before.
Yeah, I did have a game where I was the first one to take a walker, and then I didn't buy enough items to use that slot. And I was like, oh. So I've just said how I feel choked without slots, but at the same time, I don't think I'm using them as to my advantage when I get them early on.
Do you think there's more of an advantage if you do that to buy just cheaper items that you would otherwise not necessarily buy because you might get choked out later?
Well, this is interesting because this is like 2024 Deadlock, where it used to be obviously, set, and then you had the miscellaneous, the what are they called? There was the 4 ones you could have of any color, and they were 4 of each color. And it used to be, if you had items of those color, that would be what increased you, not the net worth. And I wonder if there's something about that now that, is it that you should have a bit more of a breadth to get that peak? Should it be that there is some level of peak in just having the number of items in gun, in stamina, in a spirit, Should it be like that, just so that has a bit more net worth of having that first walker?
Would you think that's what they're trying to do with the boundaries for the souls now, with the bonuses?
Yeah, for sure. But it means that, I guess the extra slot is, you get the satisfaction of having an extra item. I guess that's what it is. Because you could still, hit those milestones on each of the categories with just the 9 slots, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I there's one other issue that I do feel with the changes, the group of changes, which is I think they also make Guardians tankier now. The main problem I have with Guardians being tankier is it feels like the shop is more impactful than before.
Yeah, but equally Guardians don't feel worthwhile at all either.
Yeah, they don't feel worthwhile to take, but then it also means the enemy team gets so much more macro pressure. They're already ahead. They're able to snowball their lead because they just steal your camps, and there's nothing you can do because they're ahead. And so you have to take fights. And then if the enemy team's smart enough to be around so that you don't get those picks on the wandering people taking your camps, you just sort of slowly get choked in, which I'm finding more common with the Guardian changes a little bit.
Once again, this is at our skill level. I think there are, plenty of skill levels where people can commit, 4 people suddenly to one lane, and they can take that Guardian nice and easily after 10 minutes. But at our skill level, it sometimes feels impossible to get mid Guardian if aren't the first ones to get it.
Has there been a night shift since this patch? There hasn't yet, has there?
No, that'll be on tonight.
It'll be on
we're
tonight.
We're recording this on a Wednesday.
So we're recording it just before we find out
we've
how
already
the
dated
pros,
our first podcast.
how the people do.
But that's interesting. That's nice to know. We'll have like some pro check-ins, I'm sure, in the future. But yeah, I think so. I mean, we could make some predictions here. Maybe we should do that to round it off. So firstly, we can say that I said we'd do like a Rosebud Thorn thing, right? So
Yeah.
what's our favorite? Our favorite thing from the patch is the healing minion.
For me, for
the healing
sure.
change?
I don't know if it is for you. You've got quite a few things that you like about the patch. I think you're quite a big fan of the uptick in counter items.
Yeah. I'd say so. Maybe, but I think that might be my bud. I think my bud is the uptick in counter items because people aren't doing it yet. People aren't doing it yet. But I think it's great. I think I do like the heal minion. I think that is my rose. What would be your bud? What's the thing that you're excited to see develop?
I think I really want to see how much further the stat bonuses go, because it feels like they are doing something good. I can't quite nail what they're doing and why it feels good, but it does feel a lot more interesting with builds now than I felt before, because I would just get whatever stat I wanted before with an occasional couple greens, maybe a purple if I wanted to counter something, or the other way around, maybe an orange. You know, I play Ivy Spirit Build a lot, so my only real oranges would either be Cultist Sacrifice or Alchemic Flask. I think I always say that wrong. Is it Alchemic Fire? I don't remember what it's called.
Oh, is it Flask? Oh, no. I don't know either now.
But the Kudzo Bomb Mark II. So I would love playing that as an ability. And now when I played Ivy, I was like, I should actually get another 1600. And so I was playing around with things. I was thinking about opening rounds, or I was thinking about Mystic Shot, or, you know, there was a lot more options that I otherwise wouldn't have considered. And sure, I'm having to give something else up for that. But then I think the advantage outweighs it. So I'm actually playing around with builds and having a lot more fun with that than I was before. So I am excited to see where that line of development with the gameplay goes, I would say.
And I guess now, what's our thorn? What's the thing we dislike? I dislike gun meta. I don't like it. I want it to go back and be away.
I think I'm the same. I thought before we used to talk about how quickly we died, but the thing is I feel like I died just as quick now, but my impact is less, because
it feels like
I suck at shooting in this kind of game. It isn't good for me. I'm pretty good at Siege, which we've spoken about before between the two of us. I'm like diamond in Siege, so I'm a decent shot. There is something about the shooting in Deadlock which I suck at, and it just naturally doesn't work for me.
I felt like in the past, in the Spirit meta, I died because my positioning was bad. Now I just feel like I die because I can't run away fast enough.
Yeah, it's the running away sucks, but no, you're totally right. I feel like I don't quite ever have enough health to just get away, or enough regen, because, you know, ammo is infinite. There is no limitation on guns or anything like that. In the same way there are limitations on spells. Making guns better than spells just means that you will eventually lose out to whoever has a gun if you didn't manage to kill them in your very narrow window. Which at the moment, it feels like that window isn't very big at all.
And especially like, you know, if you are a spirit character, you use all your cooldowns, but there's still a haze firing at you. It's just like, I guess I give up.
There is a lot of times I'm just like, I'm dead. I haven't died yet. I'm dead in like 15 seconds from now. But even if I manage to perfectly parkour, which I never do, but even if I manage to, like, I'm still dead. And it always is it feels very underwhelming, for sure.
So what is our night shift predictions then? Who is going to be the person who comes out on top after this patch? And will Kelvin finally be off the top?
I think Kelvin will still see play because Dome is busted.
Interesting.
I think Dome, because we obviously we come from HOTS. I remember Zeratul being a problem very early on in HOTS because Void Prism,
a similar ability.
Void Prism was the best ability in the game, and there were a bunch of abilities that kind of counter it, like Sanctification, and there was a whole meta that was defined about who got Sanctification or Void Prism off first. And I remember that it even got to a point where in tournaments they were cheesing and just void prisoning people, and then using Ring of Frost and Rags Smash Ultimate, and were just killing people. And I think that was done by Team Liquid for a very long time. I've got a feeling that will stay strong. Whether he will be in every game, I don't think so. I think it was enough of a nerf that he's now more of a build around, which I think is fine. Like, you're fine with him being a build around, but I don't think he's gone. I think Paradox is the biggest loser, I would say, because pretty much everything I've seen about her now, there used to be a lot of Paradoxes who would just carry games. I have not seen one of those anymore. Her gun feels worse. Her spirit abilities just feel worse. I don't know how well that scales up to a higher rank, but she was someone I used to be scared of before. I remember we would play games and we would have someone who was playing Paradox and we'd be like, oh God, we need to be careful of Paradox. But I don't think that's so much anymore. I think Holiday's obviously another big loser, but she does seem to be like a rat and seems to come back no matter what happens. Because I remember a couple months ago she got nerfed and we were like, oh, she's dead. And then she still was, I think she was back in night shift like 2 weeks later. In terms of winners, Lash, maybe?
Yeah, it's going to be Lash, right?
Lash,
it's got to be
Dynamo.
Lash. I think weirdly then Sinclair goes up because, you know, Sinclair's often used as the counter against those big ultis because he can do the big ulti backwards, right back at them. Obviously, the regen that people like, the regen nerfs, but the buff that, of course, Drifter got, no one else got the regen, did they? Or Dynamo did a little bit. Yeah, I wonder if that's going to be an impact, but it's really hard to say. Certainly, maybe Bebop. I think Bebop's
unlikely. I think like Yamato. My instincts are like Yamato, Lash.
Yeah, Yamato was picked a lot last week, and she mainly got a few nerfs here and there, or cooldowns increases.
Oh, Abrams as well. Abrams is considerably better than he was before. That's obviously a big winner. I don't know how to feel about Infernus. I guess maybe he'll still be good. I think Wraith is obviously another one. Oh, and Billy, I think, will actually be pretty decent.
Will Billy finally make it to the big leagues?
Has he not been in night shift yet?
No, he's been a couple of times, but not much. Not often picked. Just doesn't quite feel the niche that he needs to.
Well, because I wonder if he'd be like a good, counter to Abrams potentially.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily a counter, but what's the term? A foil? A foil to him? But yeah.
Have to wait and see. Well, thank you everybody for joining Deadlock Vents here today. First episode. Hope you enjoyed it.
Bye.